way. And then, you think, how they say you're getting married, you're going to marry the family. Well, you're also divorcing the family, and I had two children, and there were grandparents on that other side who, oh my goodness, they were not happy, and they were hard. It was hard. It wasn't like I was able to just divorce them. They were still in my family. And so there were things there. There are just things you don't think about when you're getting a divorce that are going to happen.
Janeen Golightly's bumps in the road, or the ones we're discussing today, have been around marriage and divorce. She shares her story in her newly published book, Should I Go Back? From her experiences, she brings practical knowledge and great wisdom about life, togetherness, and the power of living solo. Join us for an insightful conversation we can all relate to. Janeen, welcome to Bump in the Road. If you would, tell us your story.
Pat, thank you so much for having me. I really am thrilled to be here. We were just talking a minute ago about how everybody's got a story, right? It's so much fun to listen to people's stories and to hear what they've been through. And I always hope that something I say will just spark something in someone. So I'll start back. My story began really when I was just about to turn 19. I got married for the first time. And that's really young to be getting married. Now, and I do have friends who have been married at that age and are still married. It does work for some people, but it didn't work for me. So, I got married, turned 19, had a couple of children, and 6 years into my marriage, I just did not want to be there anymore. There were issues, but mostly it was my immaturity, just not being ready emotionally to be married. And I admit that it was really me saying, this is not what I thought I want. I thought I wanted this, but it's not what I wanted. So I ended up divorced, and I was 24 years old with two really small children. Then fast forwarding about 5 years later, I married again, have a daughter from that marriage, and that husband has since passed away, but I did divorce him. And then jumped into another marriage, again, divorced. So I have been married and divorced 3 separate times. Now, some people would say, and sometimes I hear about people who have a similar story, and I say, for a split second, I go, oh man. And then I go, oh, wait, that's me. I don't think of myself as that person who's been married and divorced 3 times, because there tends to be a stigma about it. And yet, why? Because I'm a happy, well-adjusted person. Yes, I've been through a lot of things. And at this point, I've been single for several years. I've been single for over 10 years now, which I needed, obviously, to kind of get through all of the emotional whatever that I had put myself through. And I needed to have a break. I needed to figure myself out, get my last daughter raised and on her way, so that then I could be, and man, now I'm in such a good place. But it took me learning those lessons, and why that was my journey, I don't know. I never would have seen it going into it, that was going to be where I'd land, but I did. And so that's the gist of my story. And then hopefully now we're going to get into some of the fun parts.
What were some of the biggest lessons that you took away from that?
One of my biggest lessons, honestly, was selfishness is, I think, the biggest reason why people get divorced. And one of the things that I say in my book is, ask yourself, are you being selfish? Because I wouldn't have thought I was being selfish up until about maybe 10 years ago. I finally realized that I was being very selfish in what I thought I wanted, that a marriage is a give and take. It's not all about you. It's not all about me. Selfishness. And yes, I also learned, though, Pat, that there are things that probably could be and should be worked through. My first marriage, for example, I probably could have worked through all that. I jumped too quickly. And that's where all the thought-provoking things came into play, where I decided to write this book. But I also learned after my last marriage that there are reasons you do get divorced. There are things you do not stay for. um, I don't care, how sorry they are or how much they want to fix it. I think there are just sometimes you have to cut bait and go. And I see a lot of people stay in marriages that for the wrong reasons. They're scared about their finances, or they're
Yeah.
worried about what people are going to think. And I hate seeing people spend their life like that. And so those are some of the big things that I learned through all of that.
Well, I think when you get married, you get into a comfort zone, you get into a social sphere, and when you
Mhm.
get divorced, all that changes. And I think for
Oh,
most people, getting out of your comfort zone is the thing that terrifies them most.
that's really well said, because you're right. It's scary to think about getting divorced and now being on your own, and you do sometimes lose your friend groups.
Yeah.
You lose your comfort of your neighborhood that your kids are growing up in. Your
Sometimes you
kids
lose
lose
family connections. I mean, it can
family
run deep.
connections.
Yeah.
Absolutely can be lost. Um, not everybody sees it the same way, and then you think, how they say you're getting married, you're going to marry the family. Well, you're also divorcing the family. And I
Yeah.
I had two children, and there were grandparents on that other side who, oh my goodness, they were not happy, and they were hard. It was hard. It wasn't like I was able to just divorce them. They were still in my family. And so there were things there are just things you don't think about when you're getting a divorce that are going to happen. And it's not going to be that as easy as you think it's going to be. Just, oh, I'll just cut bait and I'll be out of this marriage, and then I'll never have to see these people again. Yeah, that's not really the case. So,
But some of the things you could never predict. I mean, people's reactions can be really bizarre.
oh yeah. Oh yeah. I once had that for my first divorce. I remember I had neighbors that were friends, right? And I walked into church one day when the neighborhood had found out that we were separating and getting a divorce. And I was walking down the hall coming towards what I thought was my closest friend. And she just snubbed me, would not look at me, just walked
Oh,
right past me, would not talk to me. Oh, that was gut wrenching. That
yeah.
was Those kind of things are really hard to take.
I
So
think there are a lot of things in divorce that are difficult. But one of the things you recommend is working through it if you can.
yes,
Why?
and the
Yeah,
reason I say yeah, the reason I say that is, if you can, what are your issues? Is it just because 'cause
yeah,
you're bored? Is it just because you wanna do something different? If you can work it through, especially if you have kids, Pat, right? If you have kids, the 2 reasons. I want people to try and do everything in their power to keep that marriage intact if they can, for the family sake and for your own sake. 5 years from now, things are gonna look a little bit different than you think they
yeah.
might. Um, but also, if you really ultimately do need to get out of this marriage and you do need to get a divorce, I want people to have thought through logically everything that they can, tried as hard as they could to make things work in that marriage, so that when they do have to leave, they know for certainty that they did everything that they could. The reason being, so many people, they get a divorce and then they're looking back all the time going, should I have tried harder? Should I have stayed longer? Is there something I could have done? Why did I leave? All those regrets. And that's what I'm trying to help people avoid, are those regrets.
I think not having those regrets is profound. I mean, one of the things you mentioned was the fact that with one of your marriages, you really did try to work through it. And when it didn't come together, you didn't have any of that lingering doubt or guilt or anything else about moving forward.
Yes, I actually, on my last marriage, can I tell you a story?
Yeah.
I my last marriage, I did try everything in my power, and that was a marriage that I am speaking about, where I say sometimes you just can't stay, you shouldn't stay. I'd been married to him for about 8 years when I found out that he had been cheating on me the entire marriage with a
Ah,
woman. I'd been with him, well, I'd been married to him for 8 years. We'd been together for, almost 10, but he'd been with this other woman for 11 years. And I got a phone call one day. Actually, my daughter got the phone call, but that's a whole nother story. That this was happening, and I was so stunned. I was devastated for so many reasons. But okay, fast forward. He desperately wanted me to stay and make that work. He was sorry it was over. Yes, it had been over for about a year, which is why I got the phone call. Once it's done and they're not getting anything, women usually tend to tell it's going to come out. It did, and I found out. So he wanted me to stay so badly, and for my own reasons, my own personal reasons, and there were a few of them at the time, I decided, you know what, okay, I will give you one last try. I will give you one last chance to prove to me that, you want to make this work. Because I just didn't want to get another divorce. I had done it twice. I didn't want to do it again. And I was trying to find a way to make this work. I kept thinking, could I really go back and just say, let's just forget the past. Let's start clean from here and go forward. Maybe we can make this work. I really thought maybe I could. So I decided to stay. And I'm telling you, for the next 5 months, I literally was thinking, maybe we can make this work. He is being amazing. Like, this is the best 5 months we've had in our entire marriage. He's being, he's here. He's not going off, on his trips all the time. He's really focused on this. And I really thought maybe I could make it work. And then one day I was coming into my, this is in the book, but I come around into our bedroom and around into the closet just in time to see him hiding his phone in the clothes that are clear up on top of the closet shelf. And that's when I knew in my gut that this was over. There was no way I could stay in this marriage. But that's where I found my peace. Because in that moment, it was almost like I was able to just flip a switch. Like, in that moment, I knew I was done, and I had done everything. I had given him every chance to make this right. He couldn't do it, and come to find out, there was someone else now. Yes, he had ended the other relationship a year prior for this new woman, and yet he was still living that lie and telling me that. How do people compartmentalize I would like to read a book about that. How do people compartmentalize their lives like that? But that's why I named the book, Should I Go Back? Why Giving Your Marriage One Last Try could actually help you move on. That's what it did for me. Now, everybody's, situation isn't going to be the same, but for me, that was the key. And I was able to just go forward. My life has been so full and so good. Since that time, I've accomplished so many things and just never looked back. And I think that's what I'm trying to get to people, is get to the place where you're done and you never have to look back and you never have regret. Now, I didn't have kids with him, which was a plus,
mhm.
but yeah, that's why I named the book what I did. So
Why do people always think the grass is greener on the other side? You bring all your foibles and traits with you, and if
I
you're being
know.
dishonest, you don't even have a realistic relationship on either side.
And that is so true, Pat. That I did learn that lesson too. You're thinking, as a selfish individual, you're thinking, oh, somebody's going to be better for me. Somebody's going to treat me better. Well, the reality is the grass isn't greener because you're taking yourself into those other
Yeah.
relationships. You're taking all of your stuff, and if you're not changing, and if you're not trying to be better at cultivating relationships and doing better, it's not going to be better. And then you end up picking people that aren't necessarily good for you.
I think we need to spend time with ourselves before we think about spending time with others, and you've been doing that for quite a while now. Talk a
Yes.
little bit about this phase of your life because it sounds really fun.
It's been amazing. I truly, and I just have to say, I couldn't have done what I've done in the last 10 years alone. I feel like I've really had divine help in getting where I am. When I left that last marriage, I I didn't fare well financially. He had 3 houses when I married him. Those he took with him. Um, I I took a deal where I got to stay in the house for, 3.5 years while I raised my last daughter, and then I was moving on. So I made the best of that. I just socked money away. But I also I realized, okay, I had not been really working a lot. I had quit my job and I was freelancing a lot, but no regular income because I didn't have to, right? So I started to get back into, I went back to a TV station. My career over the last 10 years has just blossomed, and I have financially so well recovered that I would never have even imagined it. And so that's why I say I was able to focus on myself and my daughter, my youngest daughter, getting us in a good place. Forget about getting married again. Just get yourself in a healthy place. And to finally where I feel like if I were to meet someone one last time, I could, I really believe I could be in a healthy marriage because I have taken care of the important things in life and in my own life and in my kids' lives. And it's just made all the difference in the world.
One of the things you mentioned before we got on was the fact that with your first divorce, your children were really young,
Oh,
and
yeah.
you thought, "Oh my gosh, we'll breeze through this. They're too young to know the difference." But that wasn't the case, was it?
Mm-mm. No, I did think that. I naively thought I literally had my daughter was 3 months old when I left my husband. We were waiting until I had her until I we decided to announce that we were getting divorced. 3 months old she was, and my son was 3.5. And yes, I thought, you know what, it's gonna be fine. They're never gonna know the difference. They won't remember having lived with their father and me, together as their mom and dad. Oh, I was so wrong. It seemed like things were fine for a long time, but you also have to add in there then me getting married 2 more times, my kids dealing with that, didn't even really give them that much consideration until, it was when they became adults that my 2 oldest kids, my one I have one of my children in particular who just has really, really, really struggled, and she kind of went her own direction. She and I have not spoken in about 3 years,
Mm.
which breaks my heart, but I know eventually it will be okay. I have to kinda let her do her thing, right? But so I've had my other 2 children I'm very close to, and my youngest daughter, because of the way I finally wised up and said, "Okay, I'm staying single," and getting her raised, I was at first I was like, "I just wanna get her through high school." Made that. Okay, I just wanna get her through her first year of college before I, get into any relationship. We did that, and then she went on a mission for her church, which I got her home from that, and then let's get her through college. Maybe if I just get her through college. Graduated a year and a half ago, and now she's in a relationship and a really good relationship that looks like it's going to be the one. And I feel so good about that. So she is a very, very healthy, mentally, emotionally stable person. But I've had some fallout on the other side, and I feel bad about that. The best I can do now is just work on those relationships, and hope for the best. But they it affected them in their relationships.
Oh,
So
sure,
if
yeah.
yeah, if we think that it's not going to affect them, it's just not true. The other thing too is I've thought about is, you start to miss, like, your kids get older and you're like, oh, you miss that intact original family.
Yeah.
Maybe not everyone does, but there's some kind of a longing for it where it would be nice if that was all intact because you're dealing with step families, you're dealing with all those things that are just a little more uncomfortable, and especially for your children. So those are things to really give a lot of consideration to before you make the final decision. If you have to do it, but just do it thoughtfully.
What's the best part of being single?
Oh my goodness. You know what? The freedom.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, I'm so free. My kids are all grown and out of the house. Even my three dogs have now passed away. I have no husband. I can come and go and just not worry about anyone else. I have a second home in southern Utah where I love spending time, and I work a lot down there. Have a lot of clients there. I can go whenever I want. I can come back and forth. No one to answer to. Does it get lonely sometimes? Yeah, it does. I mean, I have a lot of friends, a lot of people that care about me, family, all those things. But, I do get lonely on occasion, and I think, "Oh, it'd be nice to have a husband," but then when I'm not discouraging anyone, but then when I hear my friends talk about all their issues and the friends that are in second marriages and third, I'm like, "Okay, yeah, I think maybe I'm good." You know? You just have to be ready, I guess. So
Well, somebody once said the only reason to be in a relationship is to experience discord, things eh, stress, personal stress. And, there's something to be said for that.
I know, yeah, that's part of growing and learning too, right?
Oh, it is, and you learn from everybody you meet, but I have to say,
Oh,
after I went through my divorce, which was really awful, but I remember standing at the kitchen sink one day, having a cup of coffee and looking out over the yard, and I was on my way to the airfield, I was learning to fly. And that moment had
wow.
the story's actually more outrageous than that, but, um, I'll tell you later. But,
Okay, okay.
I'm sitting there with that cup of coffee, looking out over the yard, and, to this day, I remember that moment so vividly. It was a long time ago now, but I was doing exactly what I wanted to do, exactly when I wanted to do it. And I didn't have to
That's
answer to anybody or listen to anybody try to put my experience down or negate it or make me feel badly about doing anything. It
I
was such a
know.
moment of clarity and freedom.
Oh, I know. It's peaceful, isn't it? How
Very
long have you
peaceful.
been single, Pat?
Oh, I was divorced like 30 years ago. I decided
30
after that
years.
not to get married again.
Wow, did you but do you date and do you have
These days, not
friendships like
much at
that?
all.
Yeah,
For a while, I dated 2 people that were really good people, but it just wasn't a good match for whatever
yep,
reason, and one of
yep,
them, I was going through 6
same.
years of cancer, and that'll break up any relationship.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
but really, I love living alone. I
I
really
do
love
too.
it.
Yeah.
And, if there's a cup in the sink, it's my responsibility.
There's nobody to get mad at for saying, "How come that cup is in the sink?"
Yeah.
Well, and you get to be, our age and you get older and I mean, I think about those things. I think if I were to get married again, what if I ended up married to somebody who got sick or who, you know, had issues and we couldn't go do things and I was a caretaker and I was all those
Yeah.
things and you really have to think about those things. Is that something that I really want to do? And I am very content. And the other thing too is, my daughter, she's not going to be living here in Utah. She's going to be going outside of Utah with this person this cute boy that hopefully they will end up married. And I want to be able to go see her whenever I want. You know,
Yeah.
I want to be able to travel there and just have that kind of freedom too. So you're talking me back into staying single, Pat.
Well, I think the opportunity to explore yourself and explore whatever interests you is an
Yeah,
amazing opportunity, and we don't have it too often in life because we're always dancing to somebody else's tune, whether it's a
so
spouse,
true.
an employer, or kids' games, whatever it is. And I think when
Yeah.
you have that opportunity, you should take a good hard look at it and see what you can do with it because it will help you evolve as a person in a way that a relationship may not at a certain age.
Yeah, 100%, 100% agree with that. Yeah, you're right. It's like here's this opportunity laying before you. Take it. Don't use it to feel like I need to find a man or why am I not dating? And you can consume yourself with that whole process instead of taking a step back, learning to fly, learning, doing other things that you want to do. It's amazing. It can be really amazing part of your life, I think.
I think so too. If you could go back and look at the younger you, what would you tell her?
Well, for starters, I would say, Janine, do not get married until you are at least 25 years old or, mature. My youngest daughter is turning 25 just here in just a week or so. And, the culture sometimes pressures us to want to be married sooner. All of her friends are married. I am so grateful that she has made it to the age of 25 and has not gotten married yet, and that she's being so smart about it. I would tell myself, don't get married until you're ready. Don't succumb to the pressure. Because I think that's what I did. I succumbed to the pressure watching all of my friends around me get married, even at that young age. And I succumbed, and I didn't wait to find the right person, the right fit for me. So definitely that. I would also tell myself to be patient with myself in learning the lessons that I would need to learn going forward, because that's why we're here, right? We're here to learn lessons
Yeah.
and hopefully grow, learn from the experiences that we go through. Be patient with ourselves and just let it happen and learn from whatever it is that you're going through, because we've all got these trials. Everybody listening has horrible trials. Mine, I look at mine more as an adventure. I feel like my life has been an adventure more than it has been a trial. Although, to be fair, I think it has been a trial for some of my children. But for myself, I try to keep a very good attitude and just, my mom used to say to me, how do you stay so positive? How are you always smiling and laughing with everything that you've been through? And I would always say to her, Mom, this is just a temporary setback. That's how I like to look at things. It's just a temporary setback. And then it would get better. And she would say, I wish I could be more like that. I wish I had more of that kind of attitude. But it doesn't help us not to have that kind of positive outlook. It doesn't help us to wallow in what we're going through. Um, I don't know. Look forward to the future, right? And see what exciting things are going to happen next, or what next is going to help me learn something I really need to learn. So that's kind of how I like to look at things.
That is a perfect ending for the first half of the podcast. But let's keep the conversation going because it's a
Yeah,
good conversation.
let's do
And
it.
I will tell you my flying story.
Oh, I can't
Um,
wait.
I went through just a horrible divorce where I never had any closure. There were so many lies and things like that, that
Yes.
it was just horrible. I lost my in-laws I'd been very close to, and we'd just moved to this town about 2 or 3 years ago. I really didn't know anybody. It was just not a good situation. But so I took off cross country to visit some friends, in the back of my mind thinking, what do I wanna do? Where do I wanna live? Because I did not wanna stay in Pennsylvania. And when I got out to the West Coast, I rented a white Mustang convertible, and I drove up to wine country, the wind through the hair, the sun, and everything else. And, I stopped in Calistoga, which back then was kind of a dumpy little town. Today, it's all renovated and glitzy, but it wasn't back then. And there was an airstrip that um, ran into the main street. It was perpendicular to the
Oh,
main street. I thought,
oh,
"That's
wow.
interesting." Now, I didn't cross it, but I thought, "That's kind of interesting." And I went over and they were doing glider rides. So I went up for a ride, didn't think too much about it, went back about my way. Back east, I heard about a group of lawyers that were flying gliders on weekends. So I invited myself out for a 3-day weekend and got totally hooked. So I went from just the lowest point in my life to the highest point, and the soaring stories go on from there. I ended up with a plane with a pedigree and taking it cross country and all sorts of things. Um, but the thing I would say to people is life truly is an adventure. I couldn't agree more, but it's up to you to make it so. And
Absolutely.
the thing that's hard is that the adventure is going along here, and that's really fun, but you're still dealing with the emotional stuff that's down here. They intersect and overlap. And all I can say is focus on that adventure.
Oh, yeah, no kidding. At first, I have two things to say to you, and one is I
Mm.
used to own a white Mustang convertible. So when
Did
you
you
said that, I was like, "Oh, I miss that car." What a fun car that is, right? But you mentioned the closure thing, and I got to tell you, the people that are close to me know this story, and now your audience will know it. But I actually, after my first divorce, dated a man for about a year who all of a sudden I got no close. We didn't get married, but he disappeared out of my life. I won't go into all those details, but I never got closure on that
Mm.
relationship. And it was something that just haunted me for a long, long time. I could never really get over him. And guess what? He was my third husband.
Oh
I
my
ended up
gosh.
going back to him because the reason I went back was to get closure. This is how, at least for some of us, for me, that was so ultra important. I could not get over him. 14 years later, I ended up contacting him for the pure sake of I thought we would sit down, have a conversation. I could be like, "What the heck did I ever see in you?" and move on. And instead, we end up married. Boy, did I get my closure.